Om Devim Prasanam Pranatarti Hantrim Yogindra Pujam Jugadharma Patrim Tam Sharadam Bhakti Vigyana Datram Dayaswarupam Pranamami Nityam. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. O Sharada, propitious goddess, killer of misery and souls resigned, savior of religion in every age, by saints and sages worshipped, O Mother kind. Give us love and wisdom, thou. O grace incarnate, to thee we bow. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Here at the SRV Oregon ashram, with about a dozen people gathered this morning, after 24 gathered last night for our puja downstairs for Sri Durga, the Divine Mother of the Universe, we are on the day of Jayanti, that is the final day, the 10th day after the 9 days and 9 nights, where Divine Mother's image is immersed back into the Ganges, and maybe all the process starts over again, indicating how everything comes out of formlessness and is fashioned by, among other things, as we said on this chart we've been looking at, Drovya, about the producer of substances, one of her great arms, and then goes back into formlessness at the end of a cycle, and a cycle could be 4,320,000,000 years, or it could be one 24-hour period where you wake, dream, and go into deep sleep, always constructing and sustaining and then dissolving. Every breath does that, so what to speak of 24 hours, the breath is even telling you about these 3 states of your awareness. You could call them the 3 bodies, or the 3 worlds, or the 3 whatevers. There's lots of triputis out there. But you also have one word that you say 3 times, Shanti, 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 in order to bring peace to all 3 of those. And the obstruction in the way is Maya, basically, and Maya with all its evolutes. We'll look at that a little today, going back to the very first tantric chart I created, called the 16 Evolutes of Maya, which many of the Swamis of the Ramakrishna order loved very much when they first saw it, and encouraged me to go ahead and start making more of those charts. Now I'm up to around 290 or something. So lots of visuals in which to present to the Westerner and to people all over the world, because our live streaming audience is also here with us today. And a dozen computers were hooked up yesterday in our class on Divine Mother, and we hope as many or more, increasing all the time. But Maya creeps in. You know the poem, like fog creeps in on little cat's feet or something like that. Well, that's what happened today after 5 or 6 really beautiful Indian summer days here in the Northwest. The fog has crept in, and that's very indicative of the mind losing its clarity. At least that's one way to interpret it. How these false superimpositions cover the mind's innate light and wisdom and send it into journeys, sankalpa, that is, inner dreams and fantasies and hypnotisms and ways of getting enchanted amongst the worlds of name and form, taking them to be real rather than just taking them to be something that the mind produces, sustains, and withdraws every breath, every night, or every yuga. Whatever, however you want to look at it, there's a one underlying substratum that remains the same in that process. Foundation to your breath, foundation to your day, your night, and foundation to your yuga. Foundation to the very mind that conceives of days, nights, and yugas. That's the one thing in which Advaita Vedanta loves to concentrate on, which the teachers of non-dualism would very much love for all beings to take and put in their wearing cloth, as Ramakrishna told Swami Vivekananda when he was a young boy, and like a diamond, hasta amalaka, like a fruit in the palm of the hand, be able to take it out and remind yourself, oh yes, that fog is not real. Nothing gathers in the fog, and I'm imagining all sorts of things in the fog that frighten me or give me doubts and give me suffering. And be able to bring that great gem out of hiding, because it naturally goes into hiding when Maya marches. Name, form, time, space, and causality. Or name, form, space, time, and causality, the order there. Nama, Rupa, Desha, Kala, Nimitta. That's a quintuplication of a very enigmatic type. We know there are quintuplications that are rather obvious, at least to the Samkhyasts and to the Vedantists and the yogis, so forth. They know that everything is spelled out in fives, 5 senses, 5 elements, 5 subtle senses in dream tonight, 5 subtle elements. A 5-fold mind, if you want to put it that way. The antakarana consists of mind, intellect, thought, and ego. That's called 4-fold mind. But you add the cosmic mind to it, which is where it came from. The individual mind came from the collective mind, which came from the cosmic mind. Then you have a 5th level of mind, you see. So you have another quintuplication there. But there are all sorts of other quintuplications too, things that actually get in the way of your spiritual progress, like the 5 kleshas in yoga. Ignorance, egotism, attachment, aversion, and clinging to life. And all sorts of other sets of 5s which are less traditional, less orthodox, less cosmic, more obvious, as I was just saying. So the seeing through the appearance to the core is pretty much what one wants to do, what Christ meant when he said, if thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. And appearances, we know, go very deep. That is, they start, as far as the embodied being is concerned, the jiva, which, by the way, is one of the new additions to the chart, which will be added on that parrot. I figured out yesterday, I was looking at the chart, I have another version of this on my wall, and I looked and said, oh, parrot. Of course, the jiva, or the jiva koti, or the jivatman. That's her pet, you see. It's her pretty colored little blue, green parrot with red eyes, as the Svetashvatara Upanishad says. So you'll see that appear there pretty soon. This has kind of become a fun chart for us, and there are certain charts among those 290 charts that are teaching charts. I mean, they're all teaching charts, but this is the qualification chart of Vivekananda and the 2 streams of Vedic and Tantric philosophies, and charts like that represent charts that you can put up and they'll take you in any direction you want to go. Other charts are just specific to one particular teaching. So we're going to be watching this chart grow. For instance, I was looking at the two lamps, Brahmagyan and Prema Bhakti, and so no doubt, then I was thinking, well, wait a minute, there are 2 flames in each lamp. So there must be 2 aspects to each one of those lamps. So one of them is already right there in my mind, Ishvara, you see. So we have to provide for God with form at the highest level. And that's Ishvara, as God with form. We know beyond that is Brahman, the formless reality. And we also know that Sri Ramakrishna said God is with form and beyond both form and formlessness. So that would be the consciousness which is invisible, the background to this chart, the intelligence that makes this chart possible, and other charts, and all the wisdom that is indicated on those charts is the background consciousness, sometimes called Sutratman or Sakshibhutam, or witness consciousness. Kutastha means kind of a background, an invisible background. We don't have, again, words in English to point to things about the unseen, invisible reality which underlies everything. I just use 7 words, just the underlying reality substratum that underlies everything. You have to get into a series of words and put them together to convey some sort of an idea about what the formless Brahman is. Because it cannot be spoken, of course, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't try and indicate it. And that is one of the methods which you use. The lamp is just an object pointing to light that's inherent in the lamp, you see. And then you go to the sun, and from the sun you go to a billion suns, or a sun that they discovered that takes 11 centuries to go around in a jet now. 11 centuries to go around it. That's a big piece of shining matter. See? We probably wouldn't want to be too close to that sun if we were a planet. So all of that points inward. It all points inward. And beings like Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who were the most precious Ishvara forms, the avatars of Mother Durga and Mother Kali, represent or point to that underlying divine reality that they consider and what they describe as formless. So we took yesterday a trip through the fog-destroying light of intelligence that is indicated by this. If you stripped all of the words off it, that was the original image. And I saw that, and I started adding in all of the various points. And then I took you on a journey through the whole thing yesterday. At the retreat last week, up the Columbia River Gorge, we only maybe took 6 or 7 of those. Looked into pramana, and we looked into prana, and a few of the other missing elements that are more key to our understanding, the missing gaps in our Western understanding about the total existence or the total reality. We're speaking always too much in terms of relativity in our science, but we also must agree that there's an opposite to everything. So the opposite of relativity would be reality. So we should probably start thinking and speaking more in terms of that reality. When that happens, you have the seers. You have a world created of knowers of Brahman, of truth knowers that create for the world a whole atmosphere. I call it Rishi Loka, or Jnana Loka, Vijnana Loka even. There are shades to it and levels to every world, just like there are to this world. From the atomic particle, which is billions of bits, to the billions of bits that are shining in the night sky. Microcosm, macrocosm, they say. There are many levels to every echelon of consciousness, but we have to say it is consciousness, it is existence. We can't argue about whether existence exists or not. It'd be rather like the fish arguing on the lake bottom about the existence of water. We are in this stuff, you see. We live in it. It is our life. Prana is, man does not live by bread alone. We know prana is the next level of particle, and we're trying to introduce that to the scientific community and even to the theologians who have fallen so low as to consider heaven and earth and hell as physical locations, when really they all exist back in our own mind. Even this earth, there's good pramana proof to show you that this mind really exists, this world really exists in your own mind and in the collective mind of everyone else around you. You have your own sub-reality, as you might call it, and everyone else has their own, but they all are parts of a whole. And when we realize how powerful collective consciousness is, how it can hold a world or hold a heaven, like your ancestors are doing, because they have not died. They've just moved to another room, as it were, in God's mansion. And how the rishis then are holding this world of truth for you, this loka of intelligence, and that it doesn't take you but a few minutes or an hour or two to go there. You don't have to drop your body to do that. That everything is not linear. It's layer cake style. It's all happening in one eternal moment. Then you start getting to the explanation, the real explanation for time and space, desha and kala. She's not just saying, ha, here's my Maya, get flummoxed by it, you see. I hope you have a real confusing time down there, you see. That she's saying, here's those things which you have chosen to create your own world with, and I dare you to see through them. And when you do, you'll get my vision, you'll get my grace. In the meantime, you're going to have to do a little sadhana. As we talked about yesterday, sadhana is not perfect, and it's not pointing towards perfection, it's pointing towards imperfection. So you have to use it to cut yourself in the image. There are so many correlations also between all the religions and all the founders of the religions, so-called founders, because none of them would actually put a name on religion when they were living. They didn't. I say, I am Christ and I have invented Christianity. That was someone else's idea, and not a bad one, although, as I said, Vedanta has come back to clarify Quran, Bible, and Vedas, and even wants to do it with those specific scriptures, which are the Prasthanatrayam. You see, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and the Brahma Sutras. They're the three landmarks in scriptural history, as far as we're concerned, and they really are set up in a way that is quite obvious and easy, and then a little more difficult, and then practically impossible to understand. You're talking about Gita. Anyone can read that and get what Sri Krishna is saying. Like I was saying yesterday, the 24 cosmic principles are not that hard to understand. Oh, intelligence, mind, you'll see 5 elements. They're not even that hard to memorize. They are the foundation, the building blocks of our outer body and our inner body, our outer world and our inner world. So all you need to do is just collect them like Lord Kapila did, and think about them and make them a part of your thinking process, and get out of this level of just materialism, senses and their objects, and know that there's much, much more to your being than that. So that's pretty obvious and pretty easy. So the Gita is like that. You study it, and Krishna is just pretty much telling truth all the way through to Arjuna on the battlefield. But the Upanishads then become a little bit more subtle, sukshma dhyan. They're a kind of scripture you have to take in and think about for a while. Sure, there are things in there like the green parrot with red eyes and so forth, or the 2 birds on the same tree, and stories that they use as a concession for people who can't understand abstruse truth yet. But nonetheless, there are many very pithy points to ponder, as we say there. But pithy points to ponder. And we must do that. But when you get to the third of that Prasthanatrayam, the Brahma Sutras, you need a teacher, and you need some deep reflection. They're like the Zen koan of Vedanta. They're very difficult to understand, even in those few terse words, what the rishi is trying to say to you. As if words need to be taken away eventually. Of course, don't tell the guru that. The realm of words is where he operates. He's in that realm of intelligence and wants to explain things to you very carefully so that things get clarified. Because so many times the confusion happens in the realm of words and concepts. And if those are clarified, then those concepts become wonderful indeed to ponder. And when you ponder them, you do just use the word to step into a wordless place and get the actual experience of any given principle or tattva, like water or mind. or cosmic mind, or Ishvara. We've been pondering Ishvara for as many years as you've got the mantra. You've been pondering Ishvara. That's been your station. That's been what the nut you're trying to crack. That's been the great light that you've been trying to remove all these obstacles from, so you can have pure communion with the highest form possible, so that you can get to the Father through the Son, so that that highest form can lead you inwards to the formless reality, that which you are. So, using all of that as a sort of introduction here on the second day of Divine Mother Teachings, we will venture into a few of the charts that are suggested by some of these wonderful statements of truth in the Jnana Yoga realm. And I was thinking that since Om and Hrim are really pretty much at the apex here, everything, we're talking about words, everything really begins with the word. In the beginning was the word, as Christ put it. And then the word was with God, so with God means still separate from God. And then it was God, it suddenly became one with God. So you have three levels of the word there that he's suggesting when he brought that teaching out to John. And that had to be pondered. Christ knew it well. Maybe John didn't at first, and the Christian fathers thereafter maybe lost track of it, or pondered it in such a way that was peculiar to Christianity alone. But when we look at it in Vedanta, when we're talking about Shabda, this bell down here, or we're talking about where's the other conch? There's Dharma. That's the word, spoken word, all the teachings. When we talk about those kinds of insignias, or alambanas they're called in yoga, something to meditate on, then you can see the word effloresce. And all you need to do is take note of knowledge and then follow it in. And that's basically what every intellectual is doing, and whether it's secular or spiritual. When a professor teaches, whether they know it or not, that's an inward world they're drawing from. And if they made it a two-way street, they would not just pull from it and talk about it, but they would actually go into it and experience it. Difference between a professor and an acharya, a teacher. A teacher has to speak from direct experience in order for that to be impressionable, made impressionable on others. So Sri Ramakrishna says that in the Gospel, basically, that you must go beyond book learning. And he's in his country, he's not talking so much about professors and intellectuals. He's talking more about priests and pundits. And they are still attached to the word, the word of the scriptures. And many of them that he noted didn't have direct experience of the scriptures, that they just had a prodigious memory, far more than any of us have, where they just memorized reams, pages, tomes of Sanskrit in accordance with their ritual. And many of them, unlike Sri Ramakrishna, who was also a priest for a while at the Kali temple, didn't have the experience of that which they were talking about. When he, what to speak of him, even Swami Vivekananda, who didn't believe in Kali, walked into the Kali temple, then because of the high-grade, refined nature of their consciousness, they saw Kali as a living, not a statue, but living consciousness. After all, hundreds, thousands even of people came to that statue every day and worshipped it. So didn't they invest it with some consciousness? You could say, well, it's just an all projection of our own consciousness, but that's really the point. You're admitting consciousness to be existent, and you're admitting its power, and then why don't you just follow it to its source? That's all we're saying, turn within. There's a big, beautiful song in India says, turn and face the original. Turn and see yourself. The eye's always looking outward, but it can't see itself. So you have to turn that eye inward, make it single, and look inside upon your own, the expanse of your own awareness. Call it kingdoms of heaven within, or my Father's mansion with many chambers, whatever you call it in whatever language. You open up a whole new world. based in wisdom. That's why she's called the Wisdom Mother, probably why we sang last night to her. Mera prana tumi, mera jan tumi, asse jan par me, dina tere naam ke. Shri Guru Ambe, Shri Jagadambe, Jagu Janani ki karumaye vande. Mera prana tumi, mera jan tumi, asse jan par me, dina tere naam ke. And onward in many, many verses that describe Sri Durga's august being, her many-layered cosmic awareness, and from the Nondual all the way down to the most obvious of things, the five elements, the Pancha Mahabhutas, that is air, earth, fire, water, and ether. So if we look at the echelon, we're looking at the word pretty much, and we want to know beyond the word that's spoken, secular word, then we want to go to the word that's the Dharma. That's that conch shell that we blew last night at the end of the ceremony. The very last thing on the Durga Puja was the blast of 2 conch shells 3 times. And several people came up and said, that was my favorite part. And I said, well, that's Jayanti, that's the victory, you see. And we've consummated the worship, and she has come into us and shown her invisible self to us, and will be with us always now. We'll never forget her. As I chanted at the beginning, O propitious goddess, killer of misery and souls resigned. You have to resign yourself to her before she'll destroy your misery. Otherwise, you're resigned only to your own ego. And no God, no devil can help or hinder you. You're just on your own auspice. The ego itself is God and devil to you. But if you surrender to her, then that's called Sharnagata. We probably could find some room for it up there. It would be called refuge or surrender to the Divine Mother of the Universe. That was Sri Ramakrishna's great secret. People maybe don't understand that. They like to see him dance in ecstasy and think maybe that was it. But why did he dance in ecstasy? Would be the question to ask. And is his vision of Kali, of course, the ultimate goddess who is victory over everything. So when you blow that conch shell of victory, then it sends the goose pimples, that chicken skin, right up your flesh, you see. And that might as well be the horripilation of the flesh that happens to the yogi when he gets his first sight of her, called darshan of the Divine Mother. And everything that happens before and after that, called sadhana, basically. It's victory in sadhana too. So that surrender is one of the great victories that we can make. O propitious goddess, killer of misery and souls resigned, and savior of religion in every age. This was Swami Abhedananda's song to her, because Sri Ramakrishna took him as a young boy and took him to Holy Mother and said, this boy will serve you. So Kali was his name, appropriately named for a servant of Holy Mother. Got to spend some of his young teenage years in towards his monkhood with Holy Mother as her servant. So became, of course, totally enamored of her, because when the closer you are to her, the more you get to know her, and the more you get to know her, the more you realize that she's not just a simple village woman. She's a village cat that rolled in ashes, as Sri Ramakrishna said, to conceal her true color. And you get closer to her and you begin to see her true nature. It's sung in so many beautiful ways. Like in this way, which many of us know and have heard. Jaya Jaya Janani Jaya Shri Shardamani Karuna Rupini Ma. Yuga Deva Vandita this beautiful bhajan to her, this hymn to her, which somebody wrote. We don't know who. They didn't stop to put their name on it. It was her hymn, and it was written to her. It came out of his heart. So that fire of intelligence always burning. You see, it turns devotional if it goes toward the lamp of Prema Bhakti, and it turns non-dual if it goes toward the lamp of Brahmagyan. Whatever, however you put it, there's a fire burning all the time. If it's here on earth, it's burning in the hearth. If it's there with her, it's burning in the heart. See, fire in the hearth, fire in the heart. So there's a fire of wisdom burning everywhere, because the devotee, the aspirant, the yogi, the seeker, has begun to see her secret by getting close to her, just like Swami Abhedananda did. So, killer of misery and souls resigned, savior of religion in every age, by saints and sages worshipped. Holy Mother was worshipped in her own time by Vivekananda, Swami Brahmananda, by Sri Ramakrishna himself as Kali. And so that brings this Sri Durga, Sri Kali, closer and closer to us. And in an age that is an age of darkness, Kali Yuga, we really need that. We really needed to see God in form, and probably more to have a visitation by the Divine Mother of the Universe in form. And now 5 million people have gotten that vision, and it's growing throughout history. So we belong to an extended family that's huge, that we can trace our lineage and its inception back very easily, right back into the 1800s with Sri Ramakrishna's advent. So all of this in accord with the Word and how important it is. Now, if we look into some of the specific teachings of the Word, then I will call your attention to this first chart, which is the stages of the Word. Again, we've been looking at 24 cosmic principles spilling out, or the 3 worlds and the 3 bodies. We've been looking at this reconstruction of the mind field or mind stream and its dissolution back and forth, whether it's a breath, whether it's your 24-hour day, or whether it's a 12-hour cycle, 12-year cycle, which are very important, or whether it's a yuga, or a Mahayuga, or a Manvantara, the continual return of form out of formless reality and back into form. And you can put it in the terms of the Word in just 4 stages. First, there's para, the essential. Live streaming audience is seeing that image now on their screens, and you can see there at the top the 4 stages of knowledge and the 4 phases of the Word. Again, remember the eternal moment at the foundation of it all, and you can see how this process of projection works. It's not creation. Don't mistake it for that, because you can't create something out of nothing. Everything was in the Word at the beginning, before the beginning. It will always be in the Word, and it will never not be in the Word. It comes spilling out and it returns. That's different than the creationism theory. It's the projection, the theory of projection, or Praticca Samutpata in Buddhism, or other great teachings where things just arise, play, and fall. And in the rising, playing, and falling, nothing happens. That is, the ocean is not affected by what the wave does. The tree is not affected by what the leaves do or where they blow, Sri Ramakrishna used to say. So he's trying to get us to know the immutable, stationary nature, the kutastha of reality. And keep that in mind first and foremost, and then look at the show. See? If you look at the show and forget that underlying substratum, then you're one of those leaves, lost in a gale. You see, blown into a sewer one time, blown into a churchyard another, blown into a busy street another. You know where I'm going with all that. Just look at the lives of people and where they end up. But if you always stay close to the tree, so don't fall far from the tree, like that fruit, you see, then you always keep that vision of Mother close to you and most sacrosanct and dear. Priya, or Tripura Sundari, a triple aspect of the Mother which is most dear to all beings. The mantra contains all of those 3 aspects. The 4th aspect is what the teacher gives you as the mantra at the time of initiation. But the 3 inward movements of the word. You have to uncover them yourself. So there you see para, the essential, pure knowledge which abides as Atman. It's also the paravak, the essence of shabda, things like the bell and the conch shell, and dharma and so forth, represent that eternal truth. And knowledge and wisdom is the quickest way to get to it. Swami Vivekananda said that wisdom, knowledge may be a compound, but it's the first compound. So it's a mixture of things, but it's the closest thing to the word you can possibly get is knowledge. So, and of course, we could make a distinction between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge being, say, secular or religious even, but wisdom leaning more toward the spiritual side of it. And so you're getting closer into the word, the kind of word that makes you stop talking and all of a sudden go into meditation. That peace within that passes all understanding, words drop away then. But then you come back to that level of word and you gravitate there, you revolve there, and you don't fall any lower down to the lower centers, as we were talking about in her Kundalini Shakti aspect. You rise above the three lower centers and keep a bridge, keep a foundation there at the heart for which you can play in the upper centers. Sri said, you can run a boat race from there, back and forth from the third eye to the heart. Run a boat race. He was always using these, there must have been boat races along the Hooghly River there in Bengal that he saw when people gathered. So he's thinking outer symbol, inner, truth, a metaphor to use. So if you create the starting line and the finishing line, then you can run a boat race all the time between these centers. That's an inner moving thing where the word gets more and more subtle. Now you're talking about scripture and revealed scripture particularly, because some scripture is not revealed. It's very dualistic, and you'll know that right away. He said, when you go into the teaching of the word, you have to be like an ant. An ant will take sugar from a mound of sand and sugar at the picnic, and you'll come back later, the sugar will all be gone, but the sand will still be lying there. So you have to, in those kinds of scriptures, be very discriminating, which is why right under the word is the word viveka, means discrimination. It's a spiritual discrimination. Again, English words sometimes loaded, as they say. We think discrimination and we all go, oh no, races and fights and wars and colors of skin and everything. But when they say viveka, they're talking about discrimination between the real and the unreal. If you want it clear, between the wheat and the chaff. That's the way you understand it. What's essential and what's non-essential. So you're always looking in the scriptures for those things which apply to you. In this class, you'll always be looking for words that I'm saying that apply to you at your particular stage of the game, as they say. The game being sadhana, being enlightenment, the game, the adventure of consciousness, awakening, whatever you want to put it. And when you're reading a book, you're also doing the same thing. There are some things in there that are marvelous, but you already know them. There are some things in there that are hidden. You don't know them, that are marvelous. And it's not time for you to work on them yet, to remember them. But there are other things that are just speaking to you, see. So be like an ant. And we say in this class you're getting an inundation. You see, the sponge of your mind's getting soaked. You see, I'm not stopping to explain things very well, very much, you see. I'm just going on and on with this flow of wisdom because that's what kills the ego. And that's one method to use. The method you probably use at home is read a few pages and sit with it for a couple days, you see. And get practice the sieve method, you see, just a little trickle at a time. But when you're in front of a Vivekananda or someone like that, then he's inundating you with his wisdom and just washing away all resistance. The truth is so convincing. And especially the truths of the Gita, the Upanishads, and the Brahma Sutras, when they're explained by an acharya or a teacher. So that washes away ignorance, and then later you go squeeze out the sponge of your mind, see, and retain what is most helpful for you, and then go back for more. If you don't go back for more, sometimes two problems. You'll either begin to forget that knowledge that you quintessentialized, or you'll begin to grow an ego around it. Oh, this is my knowledge. I didn't hear that from a teacher. I own this. That's the problem of the professors and so forth. If they lack humility, is thinking that this is their store of knowledge. That is the ego really masquerading. Mother has all knowledge, and I said that was Ramakrishna's greatest secret. It all belongs to Mother. She just sits in my throat and pushes it out like a mound of rice at the marketplace. Bag it, sell it, you see, push it out there like a town crier on the level of wisdom. So at this first stage of the word, there is no form, no name, no semblance of wisdom or jnanam yet. That's all in potential. Para, essential, means that is consciousness. It's been stripped of all its overlays. It's in its original condition, and it's just light or sound. To some beings it's light, jyoti. To other beings it's sound, shabda. Both of those, depending on whether the soul is mystically inclined or whether they're visionary inclined, they're seeing this same light as light, this same intelligence as light or sound. It is consciousness. It is Brahman there. That is where the Word was God. That's not where the Word was with God, or in the beginning was the Word. That's called origins. And in Vedanta, there is no origin to anything. There's only coming upon the Word and realizing that everything ends there. All words, all thoughts, all concepts, all worlds, all individual being ends there. You are a hailstone falling in an ocean, and that's it, game over. So that's the originless nature of consciousness. So that's samadhi, or nirvana, or satori, however you want to call it in the particular tradition that you're following. They all have a word for it. In Christianity, you could say beatific vision, maybe. So it's just that cliche word oneness applies there, or in Vedanta we like to say not two-ness. Not two-ness. Just the multiplicity and diversity went away, and you are that. Tattvamasi, that thou art. That's how they explain it in 3 words. So that's the paravak. You are that. And you're that with a capital T, tat, is beginning to want to evolve itself, as it were. It's going to form a next stage, which is a space in which intelligence can manifest itself. Sort of like vapor turning to water, turning to ice. It's coming out in a set of stages. And you've been beyond vapor, and then, and then all of a sudden pashanti, the second stage, which is transcendental, is sort of like the appearance of vapor. There's some suggestion of wisdom there. It's still transcendent, and it's at the realm of ideas, but at the realm of pure ideas. I kind of hate to deviate from this chart and go to the other chart, but I want to. Right there, we'll come back to, keep in mind pashanti, the second stage, and let's look at what we mean by pure ideas, mixed ideas, and impure ideas. Ideas here are great ideas, not just an idea I had last night that I think I'm going to, invent sprout ice cream and make a lot of money or something. But some other idea that's much, much on a grander level, like this song we just sung, Mero Pranatumi, she is the ideas of the greatest thinkers, it says. She is the very thinking process of the greatest thinkers. What they think, that is hers. And they're pulling that from her, whether they know it or not. Ramakrishna knew it, as we were just saying. So if we look at this chart very quickly, you can see what India means by pure and impure. It's not moral and immoral, for instance. It's how close it is to the source and how far away it's gotten. That's what predicates what's pure, mixed, and impure. So you'd say air, earth, fire, water, and ether are impure. Tattvas, principles. They're eternal principles. They're there forever. They start off as ideas, like Earth starts off as the idea of solidity in the Mahat, in God's mind, and works its way down the quintuplication process till finally it becomes Earth itself. Wood, metals, soil, planets. So it's eternal. Even at that state it's eternal. It's indestructible. Even at that state it's indestructible. Have we been able to destroy all the planets in space? Have we been able to destroy this planet yet? We're probably not going to be able to. We think we're much stronger than we are. We think that even with our negative ideas, pollution and war and all that we can somehow destroy this planet. What a laugh. It'll just regenerate itself. Even one planet you can't destroy. So I'm just talking on the physical level. But if you're talking about clay cup and idea clay cup, then you can destroy the clay cup, sort of. I would like to speak to Swamiji about that statement. You can destroy the clay cup, but you can't destroy the thought clay cup, you see. So I agree with him there, and I'm sure he would probably say, yes, you can always go and get another clay cup to replace the one you had, you see. So everything on all levels is indestructible. It's eternal. There's nowhere, anywhere that is not. Nothing doesn't exist. There's no such thing as nothing. If there is such thing as nothing, it's called a void. And you went into it. And then you came out of it and said that was a void, and you gave it the name void, and you said next time I will avoid the void. So, there's a witness to that void. Otherwise we wouldn't have been able to give it names. So, power of words, right? Rebirth. How about I introduce the word reincarnation? How do we know we were reborn? Because we witnessed all our births and deaths. Who else would but us? How many times have we taken parents? Well, about as many friends as you have around, about as many acquaintances that you know, you see. Otherwise you wouldn't have that connection to them, that closeness to them. Your children, your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors, your lineage, you see. The power of words is undeniable, and it's irrefutable proof that existence is, that wisdom is, that intelligence is, and that there's a source to it. Ta-da! I present to you the source, and some of the most important facets of the source there that are known to us. Remember I said yesterday one song in India says, she doesn't even know the extent of her own wisdom. See, that's how vast it is. So maybe she's even flummoxed by what she knows. She was flummoxed when she thought she knew Maya, but then she put it in our heads, you see, or we took to it, and then we showed her a few ugly tricks that she didn't know, you see. We showed her how deep the Maya was. That's human beings marching around in ignorance, you see. As Sri Ramakrishna said, what mischief that being 3.5 cubits tall gets into in every lifetime. What mischief, see. But no matter how much mischief he gets into, he cannot destroy himself, and he cannot destroy his lokas, the worlds, certainly not the subtle ones that he can't get to and with his ammunitions and so forth. My teacher used to say, you Americans, you say you love God, but actually your mantra is, pray to God, but keep the powder keg dry. Keep the powder keg dry. Those munitions that you're storing and so forth, you see, that's really my love of God, that's my stability. I don't really trust God at all to keep me peaceful and happy and content. There's my mistake, there's my great error. It's called avidya, the primal error, forgetting your true nature. So there I go on with a bunch of words again. So let's go back to this chart that we just went to. Keep in mind we're at the second stage of the word, pashanti it's called. Para was the first, just consciousness alone, no formation of ideation yet at all. All of a sudden an inkling of idea comes along, the great ideas. And those are going to be very pure ideas, the quote said. So let's look at this realm of pure and impure and mixed pure and impure. There you see what's pure in that list right here in the middle of the chart. Brahman, absolute reality, or original awareness. Sri Ramakrishna's quote about Brahman, which he went into, and actually, unlike most people, came back out of it to tell us. He said, Brahman is the only thing that has never been made impure by the tongue or mind of mankind. It cannot be rendered impure in any way. It's essentially pure, and that's your true nature. So he found that out by being that hailstone that fell into the ocean, by having nirvikalpa samadhi, which, by the way, is right there at the very top of the chart. Nirvikalpa, the extinction of all imaginings in time, would be sort of a definition for that word. A poor definition, you might say. Then Mahashakti herself, or sometimes we call her Kundalini, the dynamic power of Brahman. Wrong way. Here, you see, that is also pure, inherently pure. She is pure. She is one with Brahman, like fire and its power to burn. Then the word I mentioned a little bit ago, Kutastha, Brahman as the substratum for all manifestation. A dancer needs a stage, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, so that Kutastha is like that stage. It's immovable, but it allows for all movements. Atman is pure, that's Brahman inside of us, conditioned by five coverings, right? Body, prana, mind, intellect, and ego. Those are called the five sheaths in Vedanta. And kosha, covering. Like last night I was pouring water into koshas. You see, there were containers for water. So just like that, our body is a kosha for prana and for thought and for spirit too, for consciousness. We are containers, and we have 5 of them. Or if you want to go to a different part of India's philosophical evolution, 3 bodies: outer body, inner body, subtle body called Sukshmashura, and causal body, where is stored your deepest memories, like the memory of being reborn, back there in the causal body. And the memory of Ananda, bliss, is also back inside of you. Unalloyed, uninterrupted bliss. Ananda. Thousands of souls have the last name Ananda, I've been saying lately. You would not want to be delivering a telegram to that monastery. Would Mr. Ananda please stand up? Who do I give this to? So that is an eternal verity in Mother. Probably have to find room for that somewhere here. So Ishvara, Antaryami, also the primeval or firstborn soul seated in the heart. Antaryami is the inner ruler, immortal, seated in the heart. Beautiful definition that Mr. Morosi, an old Vedantist in Hawaii that I learned from, gave us one day. Antaryami was one of his favorite words. Speaking of the power of words, so he's thinking of the inner ruler, immortal, seated in the heart. Is Ishvara really a form? Thank God, or thank Mother in this case, that Ishvara will take a form. It's called an avatar. But it's not really a form at all. It's a formless energy. And the word energy is not sufficient to describe it either, like prana or kinetic or electric or whatever. It's the very force of dynamism. It's her. Wrong side again. It's Kundalini herself. See, that's why that unknown, unnamed, unseen energy rises in us, and we don't know what to say. If it reaches the heart, Sri Ramakrishna said, the one who's experiencing the rise of her to the heart says, "Oh, what is this? What is this?" And goes into samadhi, completely overwhelmed by either the sound or the light again. So all of those are pure, according to this chart. The chart is called Shuddha, Ashuddha, and Shuddha Shuddha. What's pure, what's impure, and what's mixture of purity and impurity. In Indian philosophy, the terms pure and impure do not necessarily correspond to morality and immorality. Here, the word impure does not mean dirty or corrupt, but rather what is distant from reality, which is ever pure. Therefore, mind in its ego-tainted knowledge, energy in constant flux and change, and dense matter, these are considered impure, being that they are conditioned and limited. Beyond them, the transcendent of time and space is pristine awareness. So everything that's come down here to the outer body, to the third world, or to Bhur-Bhuva-Svaha, you'd have to call that mostly impure, ashuddha. It's far flung from the source. And it doesn't show a lot of sign of going back to the source either. It wants to continue to go away from it. You might have noticed that's happening in space with planets away from the Big Bang, so-called. It's happening with people as they move further away from realization of their true nature, further away into darker and darker regions of the ego and the demented mind, all the way down to births that are not only unworthy of the human soul, which is Atman, but which are just nightmarish. Now, having looked at the pure and read that quote, let's look at this diagram at the bottom, or this picture. You see it's divided by two lines. On the left side is what's mixed. On the right side is what's ashuddha, or impure. And these are great ideas here, tattvas. They're not, just little ideas you had in your mind. So these are called cosmic principles as they come out of Brahman. Or as we're talking about the supreme word, as it begins to become a little conditioned down to Pashanti level, you'll start having some of these things show up. Like Maya, for instance. It's amazing how Maya is such a fearful word, even found its way into famous pop songs, you see, of the Beatles. Beware of Maya, you see. So it's amazing how people can call it illusion, for instance. Vivekananda had to come and say, no, it's not illusion, it's name, form, time, space, and causality covering Brahman. It's fog covering your view of the ocean or the sun, and the fog is not real. So Maya, not real, neither is it unreal, neither is it mixed real and unreal. It's just inexplicable. You can't explain it. So don't go there. Water the flowers, not the weeds, as they say. But its origin is at a very, very high level. That is, it's up here with cosmic laws, the power of attraction, knowledge, the soul, the individual soul, and time. Those are all very, very subtle principles. We're not talking just about the time that's going on here on the physical level, but time that's going on in the realm of the ancestors, or time that's going on in the realm of the mind and the gods and goddesses. That time is made so elastic, like 4,320,000,000 years might as well be one blink of the eye in the life of Lord Brahma, or one day, and another 4 billion his night. So it's like going to sleep tonight. You don't know how long you've been asleep or how short you've been asleep. Or it's like your good or bad meditation you had last week. A minute seemed like an hour in one case, and then the next day an hour seemed like a minute. So time had just completely gone away, or foisted itself upon you in the most painful way, you see, showing you all the pains in your body and all the imperfections in your mind and so forth, and not showing you your ever perfect Atman, which happened that day that an hour seemed like a minute. See, you were very sattvic and balanced, and you saw the light, and you felt perfect. Where did that go the next day after I woke up? So all of these shuddha, mixed pure and impure tattvas, you see, are beginning to get thrown distant, far flung from the source. And that's why they're called mixed pure and impure. Maya, the formless substance of the worlds. So you can see how Maya is a very subtle principle, and not so gross as we think it to be. It's actually the formless substance of the world. It's insentient. It's an invisible substance like prakriti, like unmanifested prakriti, that hundreds and thousands of minds will use to draw material from. in order to formulate the worlds in time and space, the grosser worlds, or the worlds of the ancestors, or the worlds of the gods and goddesses. That's all based in Maya because it has form and it has name. There's your barometer. If it has name and form and time passes and there's a space, then you say, uh-oh, we're still in Maya. See, the game's still afoot. I still need to be careful. I might become a god for millions and millions of years, for many yugas, and I don't want that. I want to go to the formless Brahman. If I'm called upon to do that, then that's my lot, you see. I shouldn't have gotten to be such a great soul that I had to become Lord Brahma or Lord Vishnu. I should have just minded my P's and Q's and merged myself into Ishvara or into the Word and gone to Brahman, in a manner of speaking. So these great principles there are very worthy of meditation, like, say, raga, the power of attraction. You say, the scientists might say, something's holding the atoms and molecules together, you see. And then the New Ager would come up and say, yes, that's love. So I don't think I would agree with either of them completely. Love tends to dissolve the universes of space and time, not put them together. When you get prema bhakti, there's no world left. There's no other being left to love. See, there's just you, the great self. Love that if you want, but it's just love loving itself. There's no two-ness there, is what I'm saying. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the closer you get to Brahman, the further away the worlds will go. So he had the experience of samadhi, and he saw the dissolution of the worlds in him. And then he had samadhi, and then it was very hard for him to gather his mind back to a body in order to tell us about it. And then when we ask him, what was it like, he would go into it again just by thinking of it. So we never quite got a good definition from him about samadhi until one day he said, well, it's like a salt doll who wants to measure the depths of an ocean. So it jumps in. But nothing ever came out again to tell you how deep that ocean was. That was his only description, or his best description of what samadhi was like. So you see my point here, raga, the power of attraction, is at a very high level. It's what adheres, the baby to the mother here on earth. You see, a real deep love. But that's a kind of dependent love, isn't it, still? So if you march further in with the idea of raga, you get to these ideas of spiritual moods, how the soul loves God and how it gets attracted to God, and what means it uses to get close to God. Sadhana means, you see, like devotion or ritual or worship, those kinds of things. Mantra, see, words. There are different ways in which different souls will use to get closer to God. That's raga in action. See, raga in a restaurant is eating Indian food, you see, and getting enjoyment out of it. It's got to see really rasa, but it's the same principle, you see. And if you take it inward deeper and deeper and deeper, then you get to this lover of the love between lover and beloved, like Krishna and his devotee. See, and then the merging starts to happen, like Hanuman said about Ram. Sometimes I feel like he's my friend. Other times I feel, like I'm one with him. And we're the same being. Other times I feel like his devotee, but sometimes I feel like I'm just one with him. I could be nothing else but him. So you love that so much, you see, that the oneness begins to happen, and that's immersion and absorption. So raga, if you just take one of these out of the picture and describe it, you could see how powerful it is as a cosmic law, and how souls will use it in different ways on all levels of their reality. So Maya is used to describe Maya too. Here, raga's definition is power of attraction or involvement. Kala's definition is the concept of time plus phases of time. You want to know what time's about, how ultimately how illusory it is, like in deep sleep and in a coma and after death and so forth, that time just sort of might as well go away. Or like Buddha seeing the river of time and deciding to get out of it. He had the opportunity to get out of it because it was like a river that brought everything around. So he wanted to sit on the banks and watch. witness. See, that's up here in the pure level. Buddha means intelligence, so he wanted to use the highest intelligence and become that. So that's one thing you want to know about time. Another thing you want to know about time is how it breaks into phases. Manvantaras, Mahayugas, Yugas, and right on down to millennia and centuries and days. You want to know about that, so you know how the illusion of time presents itself to you, and how it goes away in meditation and in deep sleep. Those kinds of things are very useful to you in pointing out your true nature, which is timeless. So you can play with that, as it were, in your mind, in good ways. Vidya is knowledge of differentiation. That's going to be very helpful for you to know how Brahman is undifferentiated. See, let's see. They say that about that example. The pot was here. So there was a pot sitting here once, and now it's not there anymore. So they say, because the pot was once here, I know that there is such a thing as a pot. So you go into deep sleep and you say to yourself, the world was once there. See, and since you know there's such a thing as a world because you've seen it, then you can come back to it. Well, the reverse also is true. Since you've known Brahman and been Brahman and are Brahman, then you use the differentiated to point to the undifferentiated. So the fact that you were witness of both states proves that the undifferentiated exists. It's called a pramana, a proof of truth, in Indian philosophy. There are 6 of them in Vedanta, and then several more in Vaisheshika, and several more mentioned in the Puranas. So these proofs of truth are very powerful ways, through words, of convincing yourself of the existence of what seems non-existent. And also you can use them in the opposite way to convince yourself that things that seem to exist don't. The world, for instance, seems to be real, but you can see right through it with an electron microscope. What to speak of your third eye? So both ways, you see, you can use this power. It's up to you, because really it's your power. You'd probably want to hand it over to Mother at some point. Say, it's your power, Mother, so you don't piss her off, you see. You want to propitiate the goddess, you see. She doesn't like arrogance. She doesn't accept 99% self-surrender, you see. She 100% is necessary to know her and see her. So some of these things, niyati, cosmic laws and natural order, purusha, the individual sentient soul, that's different than the ego. I like to talk about the 3 phases of the soul. There's the ego, which is a mock soul. And then there's the purusha, which is the sentient, real individual soul. And then there's the atman, which is the all-pervasive soul. It's a good way, although probably they wanted to use purusha in that way in times of Samkhya Yoga, early times in India, and unfortunately they said there were many purushas, so it doesn't really fit the non-dual truth of there only being one soul, and then, like sparks off of a sun, sparks off of a fire. That's the qualified non-dual way of looking at things. So it would be better to say ego is the mock soul, the caricature of the soul, the pretender to the throne, and then there's purusha, and when you arrive there you know yourself, but then you have to know the great self too, and that atman, the great self is there waiting for you, and it's a deeper level. You'd have to go to the very pure, like Ishvara, to introduce yourself to the great soul, atman. There it is. Now, we've looked at this side. There's the world from space, right in the middle, that helpful photo from space that I use in several charts. And the dotted line there, which represents that you're going from the cosmic laws and your true sentient self into the realm of impure tattvas. Again, not immoral, not corrupt, but just farther away from the source. There you see such things as the mind, antakarana. The mind gets a hold of things now with its thought process, concepts, its intelligence rather stunted at this, or limited to say at this point, and the ego that we just mentioned. That's the fourfold mind in Vedanta. When I had that defined for me when I was 19 or 20, when I started studying, then I saw, oh, that's where all these things come from. They talk about, well, what's will and what's thought and what's the ego and what's this, and they're all, talk about far flung. So then all of a sudden you have a way of explaining with the seers to say, this is your fourfold mind. There is mind itself, manas, and the definition of it is that it's imperfect by nature. So when you're talking about, don't mistake it for the original mind in Buddhism, you'd have to be very careful not to cross philosophical lines and step on any toes, philosophical toes, you see. But when you're talking about mind as it comes down into ashuddha, into manifestation, that's the producer of bodies, you see. And it can produce as many bodies as it wants because it has all the power in it that it wants. It can do so many things, especially if you put it together with millions of other minds, and especially if those were in harmony. Some sort of agreement. Like in my days as a surfer, when I was in my 20s in Hawaii, I learned in the big waves. I never surfed anywhere else but Hawaii, so I learned in the big waves and had to survive. So when you go out in some of these waves, there's an agreement amongst the surfers, unspoken agreement, that you line up at a certain place at a certain break. And you only find amateurs drifting off with the rip, you see, or something, trying to catch a wave somewhere else, or getting thrashed inside because they didn't know the rules. So there's an agreement spot. You take off from here, and there's usually some point at land that you look at, like, say, a log cabin. Remember a surf break called log cabins, that you look at, and if you're drifting a little bit this way, you know you're away from the surf spot, from the takeoff zone, and you're in danger. So you paddle back and you just stay there, no matter what the tide's doing in any given day. That's your agreement point. So the ancestors is a point of agreement for a certain loka. These lokas at her feet here are different worlds at different levels, and they've all agreed to hold that. That's where you get billions of minds agreeing to hold a space. I mean, here, even in our physical world, you see, you put up a little fence and say, that space is my yard, or this space is your crib, you see, and the baby's going to stay inside of that as long as I just say so. So everything is about creating limited spaces. So the mind does that very well. But at the cosmic level, it does so on the level of the lokas, and on the level of time, and on the level of other souls that are in agreement. If they're not in agreement, well, that's why there's things called hells, and why there's things called higher realms, because they might not agree with like Buddha, they might not agree with the world of the ancestors. I don't like that. That's called recycling. That's called reincarnation. That's called samsara. You're all going to hell in a handbasket and you don't know it. That handbasket is a very big one, by the way, a very big space. So I want out of rebirth. He was the greatest soul India ever produced, possibly. That's how Vivekananda said it. He was the rebel. You see, he went against everything, and he decided to get himself up and out of samsara, to even define samsara by doing it. So the ancestors, he was aimed particularly at that, because that was the next station. You see, Japan, worshipping the ancestors. Hinduism, worshipping the ancestors. You see, there's countries and whole races that instead of worshipping God or finding out about the formless, worship, say, maybe the sun only, or worship the gods only, or worship the ancestors only. They're going to, according to Krishna and the Gita, they're going to go to those places because that's what they worship. And they go there inside, according to different chakras or levels of attainment that they've reached via these hundreds and thousands of nerves that are just like the nerves in your body, but there are nerves inside the nerves. This is where you have to give up the atomic particle and take on the pranic particle. And from the pranic particle, where your ancestors are, give that up and take on the particle of mind, because that's where you'll find the gods and goddesses, the deities. deity worship is becoming very big now. So people are beginning to move back towards, but they have to have a deeper understanding of deities, which Tibetan Buddhism is giving them. So that's a big part of the puzzle. It was to Lord Buddha too. So this is right back to what we're talking about, mind. It's impure by nature because it fashions things. And when you fashion things, you fashion them out of your good thoughts, your bad thoughts, and your mixed thoughts. Heaven is not all it's chalked up to be, is what I'm saying. I first heard that from my teacher. He said, I do not care for a post-mortem emancipation. I do not want to go to heaven. I'm a Vedantist. Myself is God. Vivekananda said, I look around and I hardly see any other God anywhere but my own self. So this is a person who has transcended all worlds, all residues, all karma, like the Buddha. And the Buddha was an exemplar. He didn't come to save people, he came to show them the way. Turn them into a savior, you've got problems. A savior is only for those who are just lost, you see. But an exemplar is for those who want to get found, want to find the truth, seek it and find. Knock and it shall be opened to you. However you put it in what other age, that's your prerogative, you see. You can do it, you can do it, as my Hungarian nephew says. So that's only one part of the Antakarana, you see, mind. Then you have its thought, then you have its intelligence, and then you have its ego. All of those are a nice fourfold package. And they're responsible for rebirth on earth. Not God, not devil. That mind is. What you're sitting here and learning, I'm giving you a combination of Buddhism, Tantra, Christianity, and Vedanta. Most of those are called mind-only schools. They believe that the mind is at the root of everything. Not a Big Bang, not seven-day creation theory, a projection theory that the mind is doing all the time, and you can transcend it. So that mind, as Holy Mother said, and we'll end there with a little bit of information on it, she said, this mind is very important at this stage of the game, means the human being. You must treat it very carefully, because you're going to have to take it with you to Brahman. So ordinary mind, or you could call ignorant mind, has to become ordinary mind, then has to become informed mind, then it has to leave behind brooding mind, has to get into thinking mind, then thinking mind will have to go into illumined mind. Chidbasa, illumined mind. And illumined mind will have to find its way to original mind. So there are stages of mind. And that shifting between them is called spiritual growth or transformation. If there is any truth to transformation, it's there in the mind, not on earth as far as evolution is concerned. So then you see that amongst the impure tattvas are the tanmatras. Those are called subtle elements. The only way to really describe them, because only the yogis really see them, is that you dream earth tonight. You dream about water. You dream air and wings. You dream fire. Those are the tanmatras. They're not just gross elements out here, but you walk back one station inside of your mind and you'll find them there, the 5 subtle elements. And the gross elements have actually come out of those in a quintuplication spill. You see, talk about an oil spill. See, this is a spill out of cosmic principles right on down to the most grossest vibration, like granite. It's solid. Even though granite, you can see right through it. It's just shifting sand, can't you? So tanmatras, subtle elements out of which the gross elements have come. That's the tamasic side of the mind. That's the insentient side of the mind. Those don't have any light to themselves. Over on the other side of the mind is called the senses. Those have some light. The subtle senses in dream tonight, you see, taste, touch, and hear in a dream. And so you have a set of subtle senses you're using when these are turned off. And that's actually one validation for you practicing meditation is that you should turn these off. And while you're conscious, while you're awake in your waking state, because you can't accomplish anything in your dreaming state, you might have noticed, in the waking state is where everything gets accomplished. On earth, not in heaven. So you shut them all down here in the waking state. You don't wait for deep sleep to take you over, or death. And that's called meditation. And people can use it as a healing power or for health, but it's not its real purpose. Its real purpose is to come face to face with God, and that God is you. And that's called your Atman, or open your third eye, and you shall know the truth kind of level of things. So shutting down your senses will mean that you take on subtle senses and you start seeing inwardly. And those 5 inward senses, they'll get to a subtler state, to a causal state, and then the third eye will be there, and you may begin to open that, and then you'll see what's there in deep sleep, and that takes us back to Pashanti. You're beginning to see the truth, the word, in its manifestation. If you were coming up from the growth stage, up to the intermediate stage, transcendent stage, and then into samadhi, you're taking the word in reverse fashion. It spills out into everything. Everything comes from the word's with God, and the word was God. And then you take it back in involution. Involution of a spiritual kind is not talked about very much, only evolution of a physical kind. But there's an evolution of a spiritual kind that happens. It's called pure and mixed, pure and impure. And then there's an evolution of a physical kind, a gross kind that's happened from that. And this is called projectionism, not creationism. This is what India believes. It's believed it for thousands of years. It believes in, it calls it Sanatana Dharma. It's eternal truth. It's based in eternal truth. You can't say even trees and lakes and waters and forests are eternal. How much more would the word be eternal? How much more would Brahman be eternal? How much more would truth be eternal? And infinite. See, there's a few good words in English we can use. So the senses are there amongst the impure tattvas. Desire is there amongst the impure tattvas. And the 5 elements, Mahabhutas, are there amongst the impure tattvas, and so the body of all beings, the physical bodies. All of those are considered to be ashuddha, impure. So this chart rather explains this chart, and we will, after the break, look at the other 2 or 3 phases of the word, and maybe look into a little bit more of what Maya has in store for the individualized soul, but should also always study Maya from a distance, never get into it and believe in it. Like a fog bank, you study it from a distance. So here we will end with our first half, and for about 10 or 15 minutes return afterwards, and the live streaming audience can see the charts up close while we take our break. Aloha, namaste. Namaste, and we have returned to the second half of our class here at SRV Oregon, where a dozen of us have gathered and celebrating the advent of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Sharda Devi, Swami Vivekananda, and the 16 apostles that came with him, and the extended family of Ramakrishna, now some 5 million strong, who are all devotees of the Vedanta, but they're also tantric worshippers. And that's the interesting thing about Ramakrishna order. Definitely Advaita Vedanta is at its foundation. As Krishna said, the thread running through the pearls that make the necklace available to your view, and holding everything together, sort of like raga, that kind of power of attraction. But also worshippers of form. So a beautiful amalgam, mixture of Tantra and Vedanta, and with healthy amounts of Samkhya thrown in, as you can see, the 24 cosmic principles, which is one of the earliest ways of defining everything that exists at the gross, subtle, and causal level, which Shankara came along later and took those 24 cosmic principles in about 700 AD and called them the elements of the non-self. Classic Vedantic move. And earlier than that, the father of yoga came along and took the 24 cosmic principles and said, oh, wonderful, he's done his homework, he's given us the constituents of the gross, subtle, and causal bodies. Now what we need to do is meditate on them. So he said, start with earth, accomplish your meditation on earth, then do water, then do fire, then do air, then do ether. By the time you get to ether, you'll start to get the idea. That's the one bridge we haven't made yet in Western physics, and, to the next level of particle, which I'm always talking about, that prana, the missing link in the man does not live by bread alone, missing link in our thinking process right now. So Ramakrishna order very much there, and Vivekananda also came along and said there's no difference between Vedanta and Buddhism. So he was considering the two one. Buddha was not a Japanese or a Chinese man. That came later. He was an Indian man, and right there in the Hinayana path was the essence of everything. Call it the lesser vehicle, if you will. I call it the essential vehicle. And that was Indian Buddhism at its very root. And the only problem is that it wouldn't spread unless you widened it a bit. So the greater vehicle had to come along, as is the case with any darshana, Krishna says, in the course of time. It will have its growth period, and over the long efflux of time will deteriorate and have to be another great soul have to come, another Buddha, another Krishna, another Ram, another Muhammad, and have to come along and awaken our consciousness to the universal religion, that all religion is indigenous to our souls, that there's no such thing as a foreign religion. Call it oneness if you will, but it happens even in religion and philosophy. And by the way, another beautiful thing about Ramakrishna order today, which I saw in my teacher, Swami Sheshananda, who taught right here in Portland for 40 years or so, was that he brought religion and philosophy together. And they were never sundered from one another and left on their own devices. Religion becoming too sentimental because it didn't have philosophy to check it, and philosophy becoming too dry because it didn't have religion to sweeten it. So bringing those two together into what's called the two wings of the bird, so that we can get off the ground, our spiritual life, our eternal life, Christ said, and we can begin to realize that there's more than loaves and fishes and wives and nets and rivers and boats. And we can get down to the business of realizing our true self, which according to Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is the only purpose for human existence. All other purposes fall secondary to that. So, therefore he said, man is born to no purpose who having been given the boon of a human body is unable to realize God in this lifetime. First thing I ever read in Sri Ramakrishna's words. So that's how important he considered Brahman, Atman, Purusha, however you want to call it. Right on down to the ego, as long as it's refined, is nothing more or less than that Brahman. All this world is nothing more or less than that Brahman. But if you sunder it again from mother, from wisdom, from reality, then it becomes a location in space and time, and it's fraught with suffering. So a Buddha will have to come along and say, truth number 1, truth number 2, truth number 3, read my lips. There is suffering, and doesn't it sound just exactly like manas, you see, with its imperfect by nature, the mind, human mind, imperfect by nature. If you purify it, then it begins to conjure up beautiful things. It begins to play and sport. There's where you see Ramakrishna is just a natural human being. Don't have to call him an avatar. It's what a human being should have been, or should be. But if it conjures up negative things or mixed things, see, then the game's afoot. Maya is everywhere, and you have to arm yourself to the teeth. He used to say, you can use a nail knife to kill yourself in an instant, no problem. But if you want to kill someone else, you're going to have to get a sword, a dagger, a shield, a spear, a bow and arrow. Nowadays, an Uzi, or whatever, you see, and you're going to have to try and put them out of their misery. See, that is, the ego has to die. So, a few of these precious words of the Dharma will help you accomplish the death of the self, what the Zen Buddhists call death of the ego while you're sitting on your zafu. See, have you died yet? Have you gotten beyond that facade of individual existence and taken the specific to the general and the general to the more general, gone from the individual to the collective, to the cosmic, and beyond the cosmic? Because in the 60s we were all taken up with cosmic consciousness, and that falls right about here. But beyond that is this universal consciousness, this timeless, deathless awareness, pure conscious awareness. And that is our true nature. We must storm that final gateway, you see, into the citadel of truth, using poetic words. And if we're to understand the kingdoms of heaven within us, or my Father's mansion has many chambers, then we're going to have to look at the different ways in which seers of India described it. In this particular way, we're looking at the 4 stages of the word, and we got nicely sidetracked into another window, another room in that mansion. But we were right about there, and there you see Om formed of particles. Those particles are the most precious and refined particles of all. Prana has its particle of life force, mind has its particle of thought, intelligence has its particle of pure intelligence. But the word has its particles called bijams. They're called seeds, seed words. And that's what these two are, the bijam of Brahman and the bijam of Mother, Shakti, Om and Hrim. And there are other bijams too that go with the goddesses Lakshmi or goddess Saraswati. We sing about her. In fact, we sang about her last night. Both of them, Lakshmi and Saraswati. We sang Vani Saraswati Vagdevi Bhagavati Parvati Mampari Veena-pani Hamsavahini Vedanta Rupini Palayama Vani Saraswati Vagdevi Bhagavati Parvati Mampari. So she's Veena-pani, holds the Veena, all sound, in other words, from Om on down belongs to her. And she proves that by one of her arms holding the scripture, you see. She has the scripture, and then her upper 4th arm holds the mala, so the actual word and name of God practicing it is more than just reading the book. See, but she has both of them there. And she has then the Veena in her other two hands. That's Saraswati, the oldest goddess on record, Vedic goddess. She was called actually Umavati in the Kano Upanishad. Umavati, the mother of the eternal snow mountains. Way, way back. You see, her earliest name we have for mother on record. Or Himavat, Himalayas, you see. Those words you'll find in reference to her. But she's also Vedanta Rupini. She's the very form of the Vedanta, the Dharma. In all traditions. You look at Hinduism, or you look at the mother of the Buddhas, Pragyaparamita, or Tara, or Saraswati in the Vedas, or Kali Durga in the Tantras. Wherever you go, mother is there. Sita and Radha in Vaishnavism, Parvati and Uma in Shaivism. There she is, behind the scenes, like a village cat that rolled in ashes to conceal its true colors. So that's what we're reminded of when we're reminded of all these bijams. Now, Holy Mother, before she passed, said, Sri Ramakrishna taught me all the mantras, all the bijams, and how they connected to all the deities. So we're to think that if there are kingdoms of heaven within us, or my Father's chamber has many mansions, that there's a guardian at each door. See? And you need to pay the price to get into that particular room. And that price is your mantra. If you've said it over and over again, many thousands of times in your lifetime, if you've received it from an authentic teacher, and if you've studied the meaning of it, and you know its gross and subtle meaning, then that's your passageway. So your mantra out of the body and into any realm of consciousness you're particularly aiming at. Dan nur grahit va upanishadam mahastram sharam hupasanashita sanjayita. Take the bow of the mind, take the bow of the scriptures, fasten to it the arrow of mind, sharpened with thoughts of reality, and release the arrow, penetrate the mark. So that you do in your meditation, that you do at time of death, and you should probably be practicing that even in deep sleep, and try and make your waking state lucid so your dreaming state will become lucid. It doesn't work the other way around. Heaven is not a place of growth. Here's the place of growth. And you chose to come here. No one forced you into it. No God is going to help you. No devil's going to keep you from it. You yourself will get a hold of one of those arms, Icha Shakti, called willpower. And with her wisdom, Jnanam, you will produce substances of a higher nature, and your actions will become spontaneous. See? Those are the four arms of Mother, however you want to put them. And so you may look at her as a 4, 6, 8, 10-arm, 16-arm goddess. That's fine. That's her external form. But if you know what of all those things mean, then you're going to find her subtle form, sukshma. And then you're going to find that there's some words of power that are worthy of meditating on, and that your guru gave you one or two of those in your mantra. You might be looking backwards on it. What happened to me at the time of my initiation? That's very natural. Yeah, used to do that with our own teacher. What happened there in that 10 minutes? Then you read later, Holy Mother said, what I gave you at the time of initiation, that's the essential thing. That's all I had to give you. So she meant that mantra with its bijams. So these bijams are, very nicely put, are probably the subtlest particles that you could ever know about. They're at the root of all form. And Pasyanti is the beginning of that form. Intelligence at the plane of pure ideas. That caused us to go and look at all these pure, impure, and mixed pure, impure tattvas. So here you're coming to a plane of pure ideas where just the very idea of space is beginning to form. Wisdom needs a space in which it can manifest itself, so it has to create it for itself. And so that's the very inception, as it were, of the beginning of form, nama, and the beginning of name. Things will begin to get names. Now, if you go down nameless, formless, then the very subtlest space for them Then finally they come together, differentiated unity. Finally they turn into objects. Now you have Shashirahasya of the Tantrasists. Now you have the secret of all creationism. That it's not creation at all, it's a projection. And it happens from the Word, as Christ said to John, and it just effloresces and works its way down a process that we call panchakarna, quintuplication, and also dualities arise in it, which are problematic, and triputis are there, triple teachings, that help you with those dualities. Dharma. And as it comes down, you see here at the Madhyama state, you'd think over there is sound, over there is the object, over here is the meaning of the object, and so forth. But then when it comes down into Madhyama, those things all get brought together. And that's what an object is. It's your own thought. It's intelligence made solid. It's mind made concretized, every object. So if you're looking at it as matter, wrong. If you're looking at it as Maya, wrong. If you're looking at it through attachment, is wrong. If you're looking at it as empty, half right. Half right, see. I can't be fulfilled by the object because, number one, it can be stolen, it can decay, it can get lost. I can become bored with it. See, go away, get thee behind me. So objects are empty. Good. Good conclusion, you see, that the Buddhists have made. Shunyata. But Purnyata is the next stage. That is, you must go beyond the Shunyata Buddhism and the Neti of Vedanta, not this, and get to the Purnyata, fullness, and the all this that is there. In other words, that's meaning that came from me. The whole problem with ignorance is I'm causing separations between me and others, between me and the world, God and mankind, creature and creator, spirit and nature even. I'm causing curtains to come down, little compartments, see. And I'm just going to go and knock those away. And then I'm going to see that that just came out of me. And the Word is showing that to you in all ways. It wasn't created out of 5 elements, that came later. It started as an idea somewhere. And there were great ideas first, and then all those ideas became moderated and smaller and tinier, down to the smallest little tiny fragment of thought in your mind. A little glimmer. See? Hopefully it's not a fragment. You see, 5 kinds of mind, right? Father of Yoga told us. First is scattered, like mustard seeds in the wind. You're out in the garden, right? Uh-oh. How do I get those back in the package? See, that mind is problematic. Cannot be taught yoga. It's unfortunate. See. Then there's a dull mind. That's also cannot be taught. Then there's a mind that's sometimes dull, sometimes scattered. Or maybe better put, sometimes dull, sometimes concentrated. That mind has a chance of waking up. But where there's one-pointed mind, ekagra, that is what the yogis want to see. If you've learned to concentrate, come, I can teach you this Dharma. And you will get free. And you will get Niruddha, the 5th kind of mind, no mind. Buddha mind, original mind. Ordinary mind is far flung from that, you see. So that very same mind, which is not a brain, we make the distinction between mind and brain in our philosophy, that very same ordinary mind is Buddha mind. Zen Buddhists are best at explaining that. Ordinary man's mind, and then original mind. And one and the same, but there's a missing element in one of them, is that cognizance, that awareness, that intelligence, that Buddha nature is not has not been brought to the front. It's been sent to the back, like on any computer. See? You don't need to push the button and bring it to front. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if you put a bunch of zeros together and add them up, doesn't matter how long the line is, they add up to 0. But just put a 1 in front of those zeros, and you have a huge number. So put that 1, call it what you will, Brahman, Allah, Almighty Father, Tathagata Garbha, Buddha called it Pragyaparam, Supreme Intelligence. Put that in front of all the other zeros of your life and become infinitely wealthy with the storehouse of Mother's wisdom. I want to become infinitely wealthy with the storehouse of Mother's wisdom. That's a line of a song. The bijams then. Om, Aim, Hrim, Shrim, Klim, Krim, Swaha, Fa, so forth, even down to Hum. See, which is the destruction bijam. All of these bijams are there in that Om as particles. So this is the potential for manifestation, the pure vibration of the word. Subtle sound, Shakti force, Shabda, Svota, Nada Brahman, path of God through sound. A lot of the Indian musicians, that's their path, and Saraswati is their deity. We were with one famous Indian musician, and he had some problems. I won't bring the name up. It's extremely famous, but had some problems, as musicians often do, and or artists, and was drinking a lot and so forth. So basically, then in his house, see, we noticed this little altar, and on the altar was a picture of Saraswati. So he had his devotion was to Saraswati, the goddess of sound, and so that pure vibration, Shabda or Nada Brahman, is the sound, is the path to God through sound. It's in India, it's its own religion. So the musician, the artist, is very fortunate there. It's not just to make money or get fame. It's the essence of sound is still there in that art. We were talking last night. Our friend Anna was here, and she's one of my oldest friends. And she's a viola player, and I'm a cello player, and we were in the youth symphony here in Portland in the early days. Very famous youth symphony, and then joined professional symphonies later, and noticed the difference. The youth symphonies were exuberant, full of life, doing everything for music. Professionals were all jaded, getting a paycheck, following a pecking order, trying to get the one-upmanship on the next person, get the higher position, stepping on each other. So the difference between those two was very noticeable, and you had to put up with it in professional life, as most people do in any walk of life, had to put up with that kind of nonsense. But to keep the thing pure, then, if you're an adherent and a follower of the word in philosophy, in music, in any kind of teaching, then you will keep the whole thing pure, and that will be your straight and narrow. Razor's Edge path, they call it, not for no good reason, the path to truth. So some ideas as we come down here to the Madhyama intermediary level, these bijams you're using in your mantras. As I said, Om is probably the universal one. Even Dalai Lama's mantra starts with Om, you see. So no matter what mantra you're using, Om Namah Shivaya, usually that word for formlessness is there. It's the universal word. Sufism, Hinduism, Buddhism, you look anywhere, that word has come into prominence in religions. And words that sound like it, like Om, Shalom, Amin, Amen, all have that Om sound. It's the A-U-M of the thing. A is creation, U is preservation, M is destruction. Or what we would say, A is projection, and U is supportive, and then M is dissolving, you see. Every breath is A-U-M. Every waking, dreaming, deep sleep cycle is A-U-M. All is A-U-M. Who said that? Gaudapada in his Mandukya commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad. Everything that has ever been is the word Om. Everything that will ever be is the word Om. Everything that has not yet come into being, that too is just Om. That's the way he starts off. That's the way the Mandukya Upanishad starts off. So you have to, again, enter a different atmosphere of thinking and cognizance, effort, mental effort, in order to take in an Upanishad and see what it means. Could go on and on about it, really, but that's how the word begins to show itself up in name, form, time, space, and causality. Now, Madhyamaka just really means middle or intermediary. It's thought vibration as concepts. So here's where you have concepts forming out of something that was sort of loosely knit, you might say. Your deep sleep state is rather like that, loosely knit. You know, you're like far between planets. You're floating in this blissful state, but you don't know who you are yet, and you don't remember it when you wake up. So deep sleep very much simulates samadhi. In fact, they have a word for it. Nidra samadhi, sleep samadhi. Sleep is a kind of samadhi. And that's why we all rush towards it after a busy day, or when we're stressed out, or anything. We say rush for the sleep state. People sometimes use it as an escape. But if you were to go into it consciously and come out of it consciously, say using the mantra with the bijams before you fall asleep, see, then you have a connection, and you take some consciousness with you into those states. And you realize that they're not just figments of your imagination, but they're actually lands, lokas, that you go to at her feet, see, and that there are billions of them spread out from the word. Word shining with the light of intelligence, right on down to the object. Now you have Chaitanya Samadhi. You have a state where you're seeing God in everything. It's what you always wanted, isn't it? So see it. Holy Mother said, nicely one time, she said, do not seek God, see God. And does God exist only when you close your eyes and cease to exist when you open them? What kind of God is that? So she's talking about this. She is the mother of wisdom, after all, so she's talking about this word in at all its levels, and its prominence in the minds of the sages and seers and yogis. So if concept, thought, sound, and meaning start to conjoin there, you see, that's where they're brought together. You would probably call these, senseless, mindless types of areas. That's why people get lost in them. You talk about the Kundalini system, which is another brilliant system in India. You have root chakra, generative organs, navel, heart, throat, third eye, and then this, talk about undefinable, crown chakra, 7 chakras in the system. Now they say this is a very high chakra, right? I found it mention of it in 7 different religions. Taoism, Christianity, the white dove ascending, certain kinds of Christianity, the Jnana Chakshu in the Gita, Krishna, if thine eye be single in Christ. So many, everywhere you find this, the open door, the front door to reality, the white sun in Gnosticism. So basically you have so many mentions of this center. So it must be very high, right? It must be fully realized. But Kundalini says the nectar there is unitive insight, but the poison there is disorientation. People go into that and they don't know where they are. So just like here, you had to you create a space, right? Just like your ancestors did here and the worldly people did at lower centers. You create a space. So same up here, you're going to have to get used to that. If you're storming the gate of the third eye, the 6th citadel in the castle of Kundalini yoga, you have to go at it a little at a time, try and exist there at 10,000 feet. See, and come back down to 8. Even the mules are beginning to get lack of oxygen. It's very high to keep it. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna said, if you play the Bansuri flute, talking about music, very hard to hold the 7th note forever. You see, that's like trying to hold the 6th note, you might say, here, trying to keep yourself there in full realization without going blank or void or getting disoriented and falling. It's happened to many great seers. There's stories of it in Yoga Vashishta. So one gets used to that water a little at a time, she says. Put your toe in first, then put it up to your ankle, then up to your knee. See, that water's cold, as it were. That's non-dualism you're talking about. You think you can just jump there from Earth? So you're getting used. That's the way Kundalini would, very nice way of explaining it. So on the way, you're going to get from Earth, you're going to get very used to seeing the meaning of everything around you that's here on Earth. Then you're going to get very used to dissolving it. You see, make acquaintance not just with Lord Brahma, everyone likes creation, not just with Lord Vishnu, everyone likes the preservation period, but make acquaintance with Lord Shiva. You need to know how to dissolve everything that you construct. It's a problem, for instance, in old age. You can't even give up the physical body when it's not of use to you anymore. Fear of death, clinging to life, Father of Yoga said. What way is that for the noble, birthless, deathless soul who enjoys ajativada, birthlessness and deathlessness, given by Mother herself as the Atman? What way is that for a person to end their mere existence on earth, you see? So you're going to get, we might as well be talking about the dissolution of the mind stream and its reconstruction, right? Or wrong way. Reconstruction, dissolution, back to its source. Another way of saying it. How many ways? We could go back and count a dozen ways in which different philosophers have put together. The tree of yoga, Buddhism's 32 limbs to enlightenment, Lord Samkhya's 24 cosmic principles, Vedanta's 5 sheaths, on and on you go talking about it, you see. It's all really about form and formlessness. That's the highest duality you can ponder. Maybe bondage and liberation goes with it, but those dualities are very precious, and you don't have to consider them poison to get you behind me. Those are things you need to get in front of me so I can understand them. And when I understand them, then I become a Jivan Mukta or a Bodhisattva. I'm free. I can take 14 conscious births like Dalai Lama has done and give up the body 14 times consciously, up and down the amber stairs of birth and death, Sri Aurobindo said, as many times as I want, without the slightest fear, doubt, or reticence. A masterful soul, a past masterful soul. First you'll have to see the line of births you took and deaths you experienced once in your lifetime, series of lifetimes. So it's just another way of explaining this solidification process, liquefaction process, and one consciousness that does it all. That's never solid nor liquid. That's never formed or formless. It's not neither nirvana nor samsara. It's beyond nirvikalpa and savikalpa. That's beyond nirguna and saguna, attributes and without attributes. That which I and my Father are one with. So, at the Vaikari level then, knowledge made manifest, this was differentiated unity, this was undifferentiated unity, but here is sharply differentiated unity. Its differentiation has come and insinuated itself upon me full force. There are varieties here. Vaichitra, Tantra calls it, or one of the 7 malas of Maya. There's Maya, but they have 7 imperfections in them, and one of those is varieties. We get enchanted by varieties. If you were at the puja last night and you were only there for the show and you didn't feel Mother come down into anything and take the opportunity to pray to her and meditate on her, then you were only half there, you see. You were in the sensation of it all. That's natural at first, but you want to penetrate through the appearances, and how did you do that? By listening to the Sutradhara. So that's why I wrote that part into it. Well, what's the kosha mean? Why is he saying those words? What's that hand? Why is he doing that? See? You find out the little elements and put them all together, and then you're a knower of worship, and then maybe you'll find out who's being worshipped. And then eventually maybe worshiper and worshipped will become one. You see, What a novel idea. So that should actually happen. So sharp differentiation is here, and we need to make quick amends for it. Dhvani is another word, along with shabda, spota, and nada, this path of sound. Gross speech and sound appear here. Your mantras, which were so subtle there, like Om Namah Shivaya, down here become how's the weather, you see, or how are you, or anything that gets away from who are you. See? What are you? How are you? Where are you? Why are you? You never ask who are you. And then when you come to know the person, they describe their ego to you. I used to have people come to me and say, well, give me your spiritual experiences. You want to come into this path. You want to get initiation. Give me your spiritual experiences. And they start reading me their resume. No, not what you did in life, who you are. How have you defined who you are? What steps have you taken to know yourself? Not what you did. Give me some sort of spiritual resume. What religion did you start off? What religion were you born in first? Because if you were born in Judaism, then Vedanta could make you a better Jew. If you were born in India, Hindu, Vedanta will make you a better Hindu. It's not like we're playing favorites here. This is the defining religion. Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, will be the future religion of mankind. There is no doubt about that, Vivekananda said when he was here. He said it's just a matter of which school of Advaita, vying for supremacy, wins the way, you see. So this non-dualism always has been here. It will never not be there. And it's just a matter of long efflux of time, cycles of religion. And if, as Ramakrishna told Swamiji when he was a young boy, if we can get rid of words like Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, because they stand as great barriers between realization. And then Swamiji came along later and said, we want to go beyond Quran, beyond Bible, beyond Vedas, but not by throwing them out, by knowing them. This is it in a nutshell, really. You come to know this stuff, and then you can put it behind you, see, and get on with the business of non-dualism. You don't somehow skip it. Well, it's going to come back and bite you. You know where. When Buddha got so high in his meditation that he saw time, he saw it arc. It wasn't a flat line. He saw it arc. And it was he then said, oh, this must be coming back behind me. It must be a cycle. I think I want out. See? So he got out of the river of time. It was one of his last teachings, one of his most popular teachings. Get out of the river, sit on the bank. Is there a God? Did I say there was a God? Oh, so there's no God? Did I say there was no God? But there is this supreme intelligence I name myself after. It's called Pragyaparam. No Buddhist can deny that he said that. It's in the Dhammapada. So there is a self. We call it a great self, or Atman. And we don't call it Anatman. Anatman is the ego. You can go on denying the existence of everything, right down to emptiness. You can never deny the existence of the one who's doing the denying. See? That's you. That's the self. It is. It exists. I am. That thou art. I and my Father are one. How many ways do you have to hear it, and how many different times in different lifetimes to put this together and just affirm it? And get out of this baseless argumentation, which is Western philosophy, sundered from religion. A religion which wasn't worthy to get together with in the first place, you see, because it had fallen too. So Vivekananda says, let's bring back religion with a capital R, let's bring back philosophy with a capital P, let's put them together and know ourselves. Because down here we've fallen very, very far from it. And we're in the not just in the realm of ideation and concept. We're in the realm of solid objects that seem real. And both Buddhism and Vedanta at least agree on that, you see. The world is not real. It's empty. And quantum physics has found that out. They need to make another conclusion. Here's some beautiful words around the word, some quotes from the Svachandra Tantra. No one sounds the word voluntarily, nor can anyone prevent it from sounding. The deity presiding in the hearts of all sounds it spontaneously. Ta-da! It's Kriya, you see, it's always happening. Always happening. No one can keep it from happening. The word just vibrates like a million bumblebees around a hive. See, there's the flower and there's the parrot. You see, a million birds flocking around a tree. This hum going on forever. And them drinking, here's another addition, I need to make this chart, I've already decided, is this little vessel is Amrit. The nectar of immortality, you see. So Om is really humming with that, you see. It's the nectar of immortality. It's being celebrated. The word is applauding it. Om. You see. And it never, the applause never stops, you see. And it's got lots of particles to keep it going. The Agamas say the mother word is the essence of Brahman as Akshara, the imperishable, just what we were saying. The Tantras call her Paravak. The Vedic scriptures designate her as Shabda Brahman. So there's 3 different designations in the Agamas, in the Tantras, and in the Vedas as her presence as Shabda, sound. We were just singing about Saraswati, so basically it's goddess's sound is called Vak Devi. Vak means word, so she's the goddess of the word. The word is the great word, but she's also here in every little word. We have that beautiful song that we sing. I'll put my hands on it very quick, but it talks about her impregnating every word. Bono Poli Bhajakali Icha Hoi Torjaya Chari Guru Datta Mahamantra Divanishi Japa Kori Bono Poli Bhajakali. So she exists as every word. As you lie down to sleep, make your dreams become radiant meditations. As you wander the countryside, feel you're moving through her body. And as you breathe in and out, consider that a mantra, a japa. Every time you breathe in, you're saying hum, and every time you breathe out, sa. Hamsa means pure soul. Hamsa, the Paramahamsa. All sounds are her natural mantras. Goddess Kali constitutes the letters of every alphabet, and each letter secretly bears the power of her name. So right on down to the smallest increment. So why not take it down to the atom? What's in the atom? Her power. Isn't there a lot of power in an atom? Maybe we should not release it for destruction. Maybe that was a Western turn of events that wasn't very positive. So then right on down to the pranic particle, the particle in food, and the particle in my mind and thought and words and so forth, all impregnated with her. Very beautiful song by Ram Prasad Sen of Calcutta, India. In the 1700s, he was saying that. Mono Boli Bhajakali. Worship her in any way you want, is basically what he's saying. Now, in the remaining time, let's look at Hrim. And next week, by the way, the 2 classes will be back to the Svetashvatara Upanishad, because Navaratri is just concluded today, 9 days and 9 nights of worship of her. So we will go on next week to chapter 6 of the Svetashvatara Upanishad, if you want to look ahead, or if you haven't already, and we will just be inspecting her mother wisdom again. Upanishads are really hers. See, Dharma is really all hers. Jnanam is all hers. Proofs are all hers. Ashtaka, the orthodox systems, and Nastika, the unorthodox systems, are all hers. So we'll just be continuing on in the same vein. She will disappear a little bit behind the scenes, as we've been able to bring her out this way. Which is like everything is covered by Maya down here. Everything is covered by Mother up there, in there, you see. Or you might say she has her own coverings that veil her. But the seers like to strip away those coverings and see her face to face. Mother is a brilliant ocean of light. Therefore, the yogis meditate upon her in a deep mountain cave. It's because if they go where there's all darkness, then when she appears, her brilliance will be that much more accented, you see. Meditating out in the sun, you see her pretty brilliant. See? But boy, the contrast of in a dark mountain cave is just everything is radiant light. You see, everything is lit up. Even the cave walls are lit up. The mountain might as well just disappear, and you transcend matter and have that beatific vision. So let's look at Hrim quickly in the remaining half hour with this chart. Right here. Oh, I hope I brought it. Om and Hrim, the two great bijams. One should go into the region where there is no speech or thing spoken, absolutely free of all dualities, where exists only Akanda Satchidananda. There with Om, meditate on that highest flame of consciousness. In this rare meditation, great beings have destroyed ignorance, realized their perfect nature, and established identity of the jiva with Brahman. The jiva is that parrot, as we were saying, the embodied soul. This is my higher self, my highest self. The Devi herself says that in her own scripture. There are two, really, maybe three, but two pronounced scriptures of Mother. India has Mother as her own religion. And there's only a little bit of Mother in other places, like Mother Mary and so forth. She was mentioned in that song we just sang. So, Srimad Devi Bhagavatam listed here is one of them. And Chandi is the other, if you want to study about Mother and her continual battle with the ego. Then you read those scriptures and find out how she gains victory every time. Her own words, then, to start off this chart. And you see Om is the upper half. Having, from Adishakti issues the first letter, A, and it produces U and then expands through M. So now we find out where the word comes from. It issues from Adishakti, the original mother, the original power. Om is in her. She's the purveyor of Om. We've often used that metaphor or example of Om is just a huge pool of potential. And she breathes on it, as the Rig Veda says. The Bible also says this in its own way. Breathe on those waters and worlds start to appear, forms start to come. Just like this, see. But it happens all so fast we can't see it. Like going into deep sleep tonight or dreaming. We don't know how we get there. We just all of a sudden appear there. So if we could slow down that film, freeze frame it, we'd see how the mind shifts from state of consciousness to state of consciousness, from bardo to bardo, from loka to loka. But it all happens so fast, you see. Mano javitvam, the Tantras say. The mind's extremely fast. Faster than the speed of sound is the speed of light. But faster than the speed of light is the speed of the mind. So, Adishakti, the mother, produces word. There you see another quote below. After Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana, my devotee becomes fit for absorption in the spirit after understanding the meanings of the separate letters discovered in the seed mantra of Mahamaya. Separate letters. Om, A-U-M. Waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Immanent, transcendent, and absolute. Speech, life force, and mind. Mother, father, and guru. Feminine, masculine, and neuter. Activity, balance, and inertia. Past, present, and future. Gross form, subtle form, causal form. Take your pick. And there are more. Triputis, they're called. Triple teachings. And you can't just say Om and expect to get enlightened, or sit around with your friends. Let's chant Om for a while. Or do one recitation of Om at the beginning and end of your meditation. You have to know what that means. A, U, and M. And you have to know that A, U, and M is impregnated with many particles, many powerful particles. And then you find your consciousness. Your consciousness is the meaning of it all. What else would be the meaning? Your awareness. Put your dead body, your dead corpse, and you next to it. What's the difference? One has consciousness, one doesn't. Things sentient and things insentient. You are the sentient. You are the seer, never the seen. Just realize the seen has come out of the seer, and you'll have the appropriate connection. You'll escape the trap of the Mayavadins. Now, A, U, and M, all that, as we quickly pass through it. By the way, back here, after Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana, my devotee becomes fit for absorption. So what's Shravana? To hear the truth. What's Shravana? Manana. Contemplates the truth. Manana means mind. Mind. Roll it over in your mind. And what is Nididhyasana?
Realize.
To realize it. There's also, according to Vivekananda, Satsamkara. Satsamkara. You come, bring it back full circle into life. So what you hear, what you contemplate, what you realize, bring it back full into life. The Vedanta cannot stay in books, cannot stay in temples, he said, must be manifested in life. That was his dear, fondest wish, to see that happen. Then they would escape the problems of religion and dead philosophy. Now let's look in the same way at Hrim, which has actually 4 letters, doesn't it? Ha, Ra, E, and M. Every good M at the end of a principle. She says, where Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti all meet and merge. Does it sound familiar? Where Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti all meet and merge, that is Hrim. That's the source of power. Ha means gross form, which means the 5 elements, the physical body and the active organs, and that is why that Drauvya Shakti is also there, the producer of substances. That gets included in the list most often. The Triputi becomes 4 in that. But the 4th is kind of inferred. So 5 elements, physical body and active organs, those are all Drauvya, those are all gross substances that come out of the subtle. Now, Ha, Ra, Im, Hrim. Ra means subtle form, the 4-fold mind, the 5 tanmatras, the cognitive organs, you'll find them all here, and the 5 pranas, digestion, aspiration, expunsion, all the 5, the all-pervasive prana. There are 1 prana, but it has 5 forms, they say. And your breathing is also another form of prana. The ha-ra-e, the e of that word is formlessness, non-vibration, or equilibrium. So this is also like waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And then turiya, when M happens. So you see the bijams in Sanskrit there, Aim, Krim, Klim, along with Hrim and Om. Those are really very powerful bijams. Most notable. Now, for M, let's look at this. After balancing the breath via pranayam, she says, and cognizing the differentiated states of the bija mantra and what they signify, meditate on that bijam and mentally dissolve the gross body into the subtle body into the causal body, and then the causal body into the turiya state of him called M, the matra M. Matra is a particle. And before entering samadhi, focus upon me, the supreme deity, the luminous, self-effulgent goddess who is one with Brahman. That is what she says here. When everything melts away, it is then that pralaya comes. At that time I abide with Brahman, latent in it. So she's in it like fire, burning powers in fire, and then when she manifests herself, Om, the A of Om happens. You can put that in terms of itihasa too. They call it Indian mythology, where Vishnu is asleep on a bed of snakes in a nectar ocean called Amrit. And basically a lotus comes out of his navel, and that lotus opens, and there's Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma is going to create, he's got the petals of his lotus, which means all those worlds, like a big flower. And every petal is a different akasha with millions of worlds in it. So then the Divine Mother breathes into his ear the bija mantras and say, project. See? And so then he starts projecting, and the worlds effloresce. Out of the word comes all of that in so many different ways. We've been trying to explain it and understand it, which is really the cosmology of India. We haven't even understood the cosmology yet. We have to do that in order to understand the philosophy, and then to get to spirituality. You might call that the gross, subtle, and causal of philosophy. And where was I? Then after that projection is, and a Mahayoga or a Manvantara has passed, and then Pralaya happens, that's dissolution. Then Shiva comes forward and dissolves it all. That's why I say, realize the Shiva nature in you, the formless nature, and use that to dissolve. While you're here in the body, use it to dissolve problems, ignorance, suffering. A yogi forbears suffering, but not for long. He wants to get beyond it. There is suffering, then there's a way out, a cause for suffering, then there's a way out of it, right? Use the Eightfold Path, if you're a Buddhist, to get out. So that's Mother's sword. She's cutting away. The darshanas, the Ashtaka and Nastika systems, are all her ways, her methods of helping you get free if you've become bound. And you become very masterful at that, and then you're one of her sons and daughters, eternally. You're a seer or a seeress. So that Triputi, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, which is here, always creating, preserving, destroying, but we've changed those to projecting, sustaining, and withdrawing, like a wave does on an ocean. Always rising. And there are infinite amount of waves, so there are infinite amount of cycles of time. When you see that, like the Buddha, you'll probably want to not have to take out the garbage anymore and recycle it. See? I'm done with all recycling. I'm done with all cycles. I will be free, I will be the Buddha. And then I can become a bodhisattva as many times as I want. And I know the kingdoms of heaven, see, within, and I can come down them like a ladder and go back up into the ladder. As Krishna says, like a child putting on clothes, taking them off when he outgrows them and puts on a new set. That way the seer gives up the body and takes on another one constantly. Unless he's Videha Mukti. If he's Videha Mukti, then one body, one lifetime is enough. I've seen it. I'm your example. I'm gone. Gone forever. I'll never come back again. There are many souls like that. They're called Videha Muktis. They don't take bodies, Deha, anymore. Deha is right there. So you become free of all bodies. And the Bodhisattva does too. He will never embody again in ignorance. Embodying in knowledge is not really embodying. You know the way Shankara put that, and I probably sing it too often, but I love it. Namrichor na Shanka, Name Jati Beda, Pita naiva me naiva mata ma janmaha. See, I have namrityur, I have no death. Nami jati beta, because I never had a birth. How can an unborn soul die? It's like saying, how can you create a soul? You can't create a soul out of dust or anything else. The soul is. Everything comes out of it. It doesn't come out of something else. If you're thinking food, sperm, ovum, fetus, body, growth, death, and that's it, then you're talking about physical cause of things. We accept it to a degree, but there are 6 other levels of cause inside the physical cause that go beyond what the little box you're thinking in. See? Prana would be the first of those next levels, knowing that there's a life force, a kind of food by which man does not live by regular food anymore. So becoming aware of that is getting in knowledge of it, and getting in knowledge of it is destroying ignorance, and destroying ignorance is then conducing to your freedom. Eventually your highest freedom, videha mukti, or beyond all bodies. See, then you can take a choice whether you want to project a body again or remain formless. It's up to you. So 3 beautiful quotes from Divine Mother herself, from her own scripture, Srimad Devi Bhagavatam. It's about that thick, by the way, so if you say, oh, I'm going to go read that, then have a nice year. You should see my copy of it. It's all tattered and worn. I've only made it through once, but I noted everything of import throughout the whole pages, and I have a computer, many-page computer outline that says where everything is, because I knew I would never find it again. So that in order to be able to, compose something like this, the main aspects of her. And they say at the end of that scripture, those who read this once in a lifetime get freedom, and those who read it twice get something more. And then the more times you read this book, the more you get, So I made sure I read it once. And then we had beautiful descriptions of bijams that otherwise we probably wouldn't have known about. Our teachers would have given us Om Namah Shivaya. It was easy to use because it's probably the most popular of all known mantras and bijams. And we would have just repeated it all our lifetime and gained some benefit out of it, no doubt. But we never would have penetrated deep into the matras, the elements. You want to look into an object? You look deep into it, take a sliver of it, invent an electron microscope, see what it's made of. When you see it's made of particles changing at a billionth of a second, then you can make the conclusion, oh, I see, it doesn't exist. Nothing exists. But then you get to the realization, everything exists. See, because I'm the witness of that. I'm the seer of it, and it came out of me as an idea. You see, then you start understanding how things manifest, how they express themselves, and you have no problems anymore with the process. You know it. You become a knower of worlds. You become a knower of the A of Om first. That's the knowledge of everything gross, that is manifest. Then you become a knower of the U of Om, which is everything inside of you, mind, thoughts, concepts. Then you become a knower of the M of Om, and you know where everything's headed to a formless state. And then you become aware that you are that formless state, that there is nothing other than you, that the great self, call it what you will, Buddha nature, and that contains everything, and that, importantly, your essence is formless. Your essence is formless. And all forms can be then dissolved there in one breath, in one meditation, in one day, in one 12-year period, in one sadhana period, one lifetime, or if it takes you 4,320,000,000 years to do it, you'll get there eventually. Because that's your true nature, and you can't be other than your true nature. All these things have been produced. Since they have been produced, they were pulled from somewhere. That means they were pulled from an unproduced state. So their nature is to be unproduced, and you've made them produced. Shame on you, you see. You're the author of name and form. Maya has got you. So give it up. See through it. Penetrate it. Dalai Lama says you're looking at the tree, and that's the apparition tree. If you look at the real tree, it's the shifting particle tree. But the Buddha essence tree is deeper than both of those. So you must go to that underlying substratum, which we called Kutastha, or Sakshi, the witness that looks on. Those are pure, extremely pure stations of your awareness. And with that, even though we are 5 minutes short of our usual time, we will stop here and end with a chant. And return live stream next week to all of our onlookers for taking up the 6th chapter of the Svetāśvatara Upanishad. Om Bhadram Karnibhihi Srinuyama Devaha Bhadram Pasyema Akshabhirya Jatraha Stirai Rangaish Tushtuvam Sastanuvir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indra Vredashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishwadevaha Swastina Starksho Arishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we see with these eyes what is good and spiritual. May we hear with these ears what is noble and uplifting. May we, while worshiping the Lord and Mother of the universe with healthy minds and bodies, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.